Hey guys, Ash here coming at you today with another Raid Shadow Legends Champion guide. Today we have a guide on Elenaril, a really powerful and unique Magic Affinity Legendary High Elf Champion. Before we jump into it, a few shoutouts to you guys, starting with the Mightiest Monkey. Shout out, could you potentially make an Elenaril guide? She has an irresistible HP burn as well on her A1, which is often overlooked, a really valuable part of her kit. Cloudian looking for a guide. We have Leon, Leon again. We have Samantha looking for a Elenaril guide along with Trevor, Alberic, and much more, including pork chop sandwiches. Let's go ahead and take a look at her. All right, guys, so Elenaril, as I mentioned, a high elf. I don't know, for whatever reason, I've never looked at her, or I mean, I know she's a high elf in the game, but I don't look at her as an elf per se, you know? I think they're more of like a dark elf just because of all the poison synergy, I guess. I don't know. Either way, she looks pretty cool. Like the aesthetics are really cool around her. She's got the golden armor. She's got the long purple braids, the golden bow as well. So really cool aesthetically. As I mentioned, she is Magic Affinity attack-based champion. She actually has a very healthy amount of defense for an attack-based champion. She's got to be up there, at least in terms of legacy champions, with 1222 on the base defense. That's really good. And then 14.5 on the HP is not good. So she's kind of squishy, but defensive. So keep that in mind when scaling up her stats, right? So obviously, anything defense percentage is going to go really well on her, and anything HP percentage is not going to work out that well. It would behoove you, if you're going to work on survivability on Elenaril, to focus on accessory stats, ring, and maybe amulet for HP, because flat stat obviously is going to benefit you there. On her A1, Searing Rebuke attacks one enemy, places a burn for 2 turns that cannot be resisted. What a powerful and unique A1 ability, guys. I mean, it's an HP burn that lasts for 2 turns on an A1, 100% land rate, without books or anything. And then it can't be resisted on top of that. It's one of the best single target burns in the game, like flat out, right? On the A2, it's probably the best single target burn in the game, you know? Only thing missing is activating on the same ability, right? So maybe right behind Chronum and a Ninja. Smolder attacks all enemies, places a poison debuff for 2 turns, places a second poison debuff for 2 turns if the attack is critical, okay? So 2 poisons on an AoE. We do need a 100% crit rate to pull this off, so it's pretty important that we get it. On Combust, deals damage from all poison debuffs on all enemies instantly. This is on a 4-turn cooldown. She has a crit rate in faction crypts, kind of a useless aura for the most part, unless you're just lacking any aura for faction crypts. I will say, though, that this Combust makes her my favorite poison activator in the game. All poisons are going on all enemies instantly, no damage handicap added to that skill. Now, why do I mention a damage handicap? Because now I don't want to compare negatively to Xavier, right? Who's another, probably the second most well-known, I guess Theodore up there too, like old school, certainly poison combustors or activators, right? Now, Deadly Catalyst attacks all enemies. Enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived on a 4-turn instead of a 3-turn like Combust on Elenaril's ability. Attacks all enemies, blocks revival, deals all damage from all poison debuffs on the target instantly. Poison debuffs will only deal half the standard damage when used against bosses, okay? So obviously Elenaril's Combust ability will deal full damage against bosses. So when you do get to that dragon or the red boss, or whoever you're using the poisons on, you know, they're going to do full damage with Combust. However, she has the Deny Revive. That allows Xavier to do things that Elenaril can't, right? In Doom Tower floors where there's annoying Torments that self-revive, or, you know, whoever. There's revivers everywhere, 8 Siphies. I exaggerate a little bit, but, I mean, you're not going to have to worry about that with a Xavier. So they both have their pros and their cons, you know, but there are also a lot of obvious similarities as well. Okay, so we went over a kit. Let's talk about where we're going to be using. Actually, let's talk about the build first, then we'll pull up where we use her and get the grades from hellhades.com. On my recently used champions, you can already get a feel for the type of champions that synergize well with Elenaril. So we have her in triple perception. I think that triple perception is just one of the best overall trip sets you can rock in the game, right? That accuracy is so unbelievably powerful to add to any champion, especially in the early game, but even in the mid and the late game of Raid Shadow Legends. I mean, getting 120 accuracy is incredible. You add that to your great haul progression. If you're working on accuracy, which you should be, I mean, you're just getting a ton of accuracy just right out the gate without having to focus on even your banner or anything beyond that. So I love triple perception because we love the speed too. We do have to be cognizant of her speed relative to the other champions that are on her team, right? Because we want her to be going, after all the poisons are landed, to use her combust. So she can't go too early, or maybe you do want her going early and you want her to lead in with the A2, the smolder ability. Now, the smolder ability, that's going to land 2 poisons to help synergize or power up, if so to speak, her combustibility on the A3. With all that said, I love triple perception. That's the way to go, I think, with this champion. Accuracy on the banner. We have HP on the amulet. We have attack on the ring, so I can keep her alive like this. Again, there's a strong argument to be had with going HP here instead, but obviously damage is based on attack. And look at that juicy defensive double roll that I got there. We already talked about how well defense percentage scales on this champion, so it's actually a very good ring considering we have another double roll of attack there, right? We have speed on the boots. We have attack percentage on the chest, and we have crit rate on the gauntlets. You don't have to, stress yourself using all your nuker gear on Elenaril. Her damage is coming from the poisons and the combust, not from, and the burn, I should say too, but not from your multipliers, so to speak, or at least that's going to be very, very negligible comparatively. However, her multipliers aren't bad. Her base attack, 1387, isn't amazing, but let me just pull it up right now. A 3.6 multiplier on the A1 and a 4.7 on the AoE. It's actually really, really solid. So we're building her with crit rate anyway. You can make a really strong argument just going crit damage on the amulet if you can keep her alive. Anyway, I digress. Crit rate I think is just fine. And total stats here, you're gonna see I don't want to be like super nitpicky here because 99 versus 100% crit rate. Some people will lecture you. How dare you not go 100% crit rate? But in Eleanor's case, it actually does matter. It matters having 100%. Think of it this way. So I would say, is it the end of the world? No, but I'm going to be throwing away some energy, because out of 100 runs, I might lose a run because she doesn't land that next poison, which I need to activate to clear that wave because I have the rest of the team speed run or speed tuned that would just die or wipe otherwise, right? So if I'm losing 1 out of every 100 battles because she doesn't land the crit, ergo that extra poison, I might be throwing away energy on my speed run, So in a case like this, where you need to land a critical hit to land an essential debuff, 100% actually does matter. So do as I say, not as I do. 442 on the accuracy, some survivability there, almost 3,000 on the defense. It's enough, again, to keep her alive through most battles. However, I will say against Dragonheart 10, she dies. I just use the strategy. It actually goes faster oftentimes of letting Bad Alcazar solo the boss at the end. I'm sure a lot of you guys do too, if you're lucky enough to have Bad Alcazar. Masteries, we just went with the accuracy masteries. Nothing too crazy to point out here, honestly. I do think that picking up Master Hex is a great idea. Other than that, we picked up War Master as a tier 6. So again, if you guys want a screenshot, take a look there, right there. We already pulled up her multipliers on the website, but let's see where they recommend using her. 3.5 on hellhades.com for clan boss, a 5 out of 5 dragon, 5 out of 5 dragon hard, 4.5 ice golem, 4 ice golem regular, frostbiter a 5 for obvious reasons. And now it's a shame right now. I probably should have just delayed on this guide, but I really wanted to do one and couldn't think of another champion I had already built and ready to go. But man, I think that I wish I could shorten the other Doom Tower rotation. Frostbiter, she's amazing. It's an irresistible burner, if you don't have Walking Tomb Drang, if you don't have Ignatius, then she's your go-to if you have an Elenaril on your account. For an irresistible burner, very, very great against Frostbiter. Obviously, Frostbiter has to die under a burn, or it will get revived with 50% HP unless you have a Lydia on your team. It's another strategy to handle that. Nether Spider as well for obvious reasons. So yeah, I mean, everything pretty much makes sense here. On Magma Dragon, you just got to be careful because you don't want to be landing the burn on the A1 on the Magma Dragon, okay? So I'm not sure if I would give her the 4 there, but you know, splitting hairs. Overall, she's good at speed running Doom Tower waves as well, right? So Doom Tower waves, I would actually give her closer to maybe a 4 or even a 4.5 or something for waves, especially earlier on in the tower. Anyway, guys, let's go ahead and take her into action here. I'm going to show you a speed run. And it's just going to be a dragon speed run. I'm only going to show you one run because they're pretty repetitive. I mean, what you're going to see here can be applied to all wave content in the game. She's great against dragon because she's also great against the boss as well. But most importantly, I just want to go over the team setup here. It's pretty intuitive. And the good news is none of these champions are absolutely required on a speedrun team. You know, obviously Theodore and Calvalax, at this point in the game, there's so many great poison champions out there. Noct the Paralyzer, King Galkabar, Corvus the Corruptor. There's so many, you know, even released in the last year or two, that even a Taurus as an epic champion, for example. But we're looking to pair her with champions who have, you know, 2 or more poisons on an ability, you know? So I just rattled off a bunch. But, you know, she brings 2 poisons on AO. Eurogrim, another epic. Richtof. I'm actually having a guide on Richtof coming really soon. I really like him. He's got 3 poisons on an AoE. It's a single target ability, but it lands on everybody. You know, he's not the best champion in the world, but he's pretty cool. He has an AoE on his A1 as well. Tomb Lord has 4 poisons. So one of the best Elenaril combos if you're lucky enough to have him. Battlecazar has 2 poisons, so only 2. We're kind of looking for 3 or more, ideally. But in Dark Kale, by the way, another great pairing with her. But with Bad El, he really shines against the dragon. And then we have Yumeko, so like a Kymar or a Renegade, basically anybody to reduce cooldowns. That way we can get back to that combust ability for that second wave, right? So let me show you the team setup here. Again, it's really not rocket science, you know, what we're doing here. But, you know, and you can work with the speeds. You can work with it. Basically, you build your Elenaril. Her total stats at 239 speed, right? And then you can decide, okay, she's just too slow. I can't, or she's just too fast. I can't lead off with Combust. Usually, it's not going to ruin anything. The enemies aren't going to go yet if you just lead off with Smolder and then come back around and everything's nice and debuffed, right? So Combust is fine. We're going to lead off with obviously everybody's poison abilities. So Tomb Lord leading off with his Death Burst, making sure that we're not blighting. Richtof, same thing. We don't even want to use his A3. We'd rather just do an AoE when the Bloodletting's not available. And then Battlecazar, only 1 ability. We don't need to do anything. With Elenaril herself, we're coming in here and just going to prioritize or open with the combustibility, right? Now, again, nothing wrong with leading off with Smolder if you have to. You know, if you just need more poisons to be able to clear that wave. Or, you know, you could, if you don't kill the enemies, you could still go if you're early game with this strategy, but just let the run go, you know, just let it go for a little bit. If you have a reset champion, you don't want them to use their reset ability, obviously, on the first turn. Again, I know that some of this stuff is pretty elementary to you guys, but at the same time, the whole point of this channel is to get pretty granular on strategy for new viewers too, because if you're just picking up, or new players, if you're just picking up a guide for the first time, who wants to, I just remember being a first-time player in so many games, and going out there and seeking content and being like, dude, I don't know what any of this means, you know? Anyway, here we go, guys. Here's the run. All right, guys, so we'll take it off auto here. So we're going to lead in with the A2 ability because we don't want to use our reset champion's ability, right? We're going to come in here. We're going to land poisons with Bad L. We're going to land more poisons. We don't have to worry about affinities. Everybody's void on level 10, right? Stage 10. But obviously, you know, if you're using a Richtof or a Tomb Lord or anybody, we don't want to be going into magic affinity champions, right? So there we go. We're going to go ahead. There's plenty of poisons. We don't need to use the A2. What don't we have on this team? We don't have any debuffers. We don't have any decreased defense or weakened champions. We don't need them. It's all coming from the poison, you know? All right, so we're going to go in here. We're going to go ahead and just keep placing our poisons. And she's all set up to go again. She's next in line. She combusts, and everybody's dead. So this, along with seer activation teams, is the most popular strategy in all of Raid for speed farming content, right? Especially in Doom Tower. I just want to see what he does with the what Richtof is able to do. He's going to be dead, I think, in a second. They're both going to be dead. So at this point, I think you could. I would love to get a little bit more out of her here. You know, luckily she's going to stay alive for a little bit longer, but I would love to get a little bit more survivability out of her, right? But you can see she lands the irresistible burn for 3 turns. I mean, what a cool little champ, huh? And that burn is so underrated, I think, you know? What about you guys? Obviously, there's areas that we can use the, there's so many areas that we can use that burn, you know? Ice Golem. Okay, I can just put it on auto from here. Is it just me or does it feel, it felt like super zoomed out there? Man. All right, so at this point in the battle, she does die. She did great work getting us this far, but here's where basically Battle is able to just solo. So, like I said earlier, oftentimes it ends up even kind of going faster, but, you know, I feel like this is common. And if you don't have a Battle Khazar, by the way, you could sub in a Stultus Dragonbane. You might be a little bit shy on some of the poisons. You might have to use Elenaril's A2, you know, before the combust. But it will still go smoothly. But you could use a Stultus because he's also able to solo the dragon at the end. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed this guide. Really, really cool champion. Again, I wish I could show you her against Frostbiter as well because she really does shine in that dungeon. What you saw here in Dragon's Lair, again, can be applied to Doom Tower floors. It can be applied to other dungeon progression. So really cool champion. I think she's absolutely worth investing in. She'll save you a lot of time, and in this game, time can be everything. Much love, and as always, take care, guys.